I still remember the smell of fresh paint and lemon cleaner the morning of my housewarming, the way the sunlight leaned through the big front windows like it was blessing the place. I'd worked for years for those windows. I'd worked for the quiet, for the mortgage paid ahead, for the hardwood floors that didn't creak because I'd had them redone properly instead of cutting corners. I stood in the kitchen, barefoot on the cool tile, smoothing my dress and telling myself that today was supposed to be simple. A celebration. Family, food, laughter. Proof that sacrifice eventually turns into something solid you can touch. I was wrong about the simple part. My name is Claire. I was 30 for that year, old enough to know better and young enough to still hope. Our parents died when I was 20. A car accident on a rain-slicked interstate, a police officer at the door before dawn, the kind of morning that splits your life into before and after. Overnight, I became a parent to my siblings. Evan, who was 16 and already angry at the world, and Lily, who was 12 and too quiet for her own good. I put college on pause, took a job I hated but that paid consistently, and learned how to stretch a dollar until it felt like it might snap. I learned how to cook in bulk, how to negotiate bills, how to hold my grief together long enough to get everyone to school on time. I learned how to be dependable. That habit never left me. It hardened into a spine. By the time I married Mark, I'd already lived several lifetimes of responsibility. Mark was kind, steady, and a little dazzled by how I handled things. His sister Jenna was the opposite, effortless where I was deliberate, charming where I was quiet. She floated into rooms and people noticed. I'd always liked her in the way you like someone you don't fully understand. She laughed loudly, asked personal questions, and called me St. Clair like it was a joke we were both supposed to be in on. The housewarming was my idea. I wanted to mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Mark and I had bought the place mostly with my savings. I didn't say that out loud, not then. I told myself marriage meant shared futures, shared credit, shared pride. Still, there was a knot under my ribs as guests arrived, carrying bottles of wine and potted plants, stepping into the home I'd built piece by piece. Jenna arrived late like she always did, sweeping in with a perfume that clung to the air. She hugged me hard, her bracelets jangling. "This place is unreal," she said. "You did amazing." I smiled. "Thanks for coming." In the kitchen, I'd set up a long table with serving dishes I'd borrowed from Lily, who developed a sudden interest in ceramics. We had roasted chicken, a big salad, bread still warm from the bakery down the street. I'd planned it carefully, food that felt generous without being fussy. As people filled plates, I hovered, refilling water glasses, answering questions about paint colors and contractors. At some point, Jenna slipped in beside me. "You look tired," she said softly, eyes flicking to my face. "Are you eating?" "I will," I said. "In a minute." She laughed. "You always say that." When I finally made myself a plate, the room was loud with overlapping conversations. I set it down on the counter, stepped away to answer Lily's question about the guest room, and when I came back, Jenna was standing there with two plates in her hands. "Yours?" she asked, holding one out. I nodded without thinking and took it. The chicken looked the same. Everything did. We sat at opposite ends of the table. I took a bite, smiling at something Mark said. The second bite tasted off. Not spoiled, just wrong. Metallic, I paused, fork hovering. "You okay?" Mark asked. "Yeah," I said automatically. I swallowed, my throat tightened. The room tilted a fraction like the floor had decided to slope. It passed, or I told myself it did. 10 minutes later, my heart was racing for no reason I could name. My palms prickled, sweat beaded at my hairline. I stood, chair scraping, and excused myself to the bathroom. I splashed water on my face and stared at my reflection. My pupils looked too dark. My mouth felt numb. I sat on the edge of the tub and breathed until the shaking eased. By the time I came back out, the party was winding down. People hugged me, promised dinners, told me how proud they were. Jenna caught my arm as I carried plates to the sink. "You sure you're okay?" she asked again, her voice all concern. "I'm fine," I said. The words felt heavy. That night, after everyone left and the house went quiet, I woke up with my heart pounding and a pressure behind my eyes. Mark wanted to call an ambulance. I refused, pride maybe, or denial. By morning, the symptoms had faded enough to pass for anxiety. I didn't think about the plates again until 3 days later when my bank called. The woman on the line spoke in a careful tone, the kind people use when they don't want to alarm you. There had been unusual activity, large transfers, new authorized access added to my accounts. "I didn't do that," I said. My mouth went dry. We sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, statements scrolling. My savings, the ones I'd built since I was 20, had been touched, not emptied, just moved around enough to make my skin crawl. Someone had tested the doors. "Could it be a mistake?" Mark asked. I shook my head. "No." The authorization name stared back at me like a dare. "Jenna, I didn't accuse her. Not yet." I told myself there had to be an explanation, maybe a clerical error. Maybe a misunderstanding from when we'd talked casually about investments. Jenna liked to talk big about opportunities. I'd listened, smiled, declined. I called the bank back and froze the accounts. I changed passwords. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house felt like a footstep. Every buzz of my phone sent a jolt through me. The next day, Jenna called. Hey, she said brightly. We should grab coffee. My chest tight. Why? A pause, too long. I just want to talk. We met at a cafe near my office. She was already there, scrolling on her phone. She hugged me, smelled like the same perfume. I heard there was some issue with your accounts, she said, stirring her drink. Mark mentioned it. I kept my voice even. Do you know anything about that? She smiled, a little too quick. I was trying to help you. Help me how? You're so cautious, she said. You let money sit there when it could be working for you. I know people. I was going to set something up, surprise you. My hands were steady on the table. Inside, something was cracking. You added yourself to my accounts without asking. Well, yes, she said like it was obvious. How else could I move things around? That's illegal, I said softly. Her smile faltered. Claire, don't be dramatic. There it was, the word that had followed me since my 20s whenever I drew a line. I need you to remove yourself, I said. Immediately? She leaned back, eyes narrowing. My brother? And this is my money, she laughed, sharp. After everything you have, you can't spare a little trust? The cafe noise pressed in around us. I stood. This conversation is over. I walked out with my heart hammering, my mind racing back to the housewarming, the plate, the way my body had reacted. A chill ran through me. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think Jenna would do something like that, but patterns don't lie. Opportunism looks the same no matter how it's dressed. That week, I gathered evidence screenshots, call logs, emails where Jenna had pushed, probed, asked for details she didn't need. I met with a lawyer. I learned words like revocation and restraining order. I felt old and young at the same time, old for knowing this was necessary, young for still grieving the fantasy of family as a safe place. Mark struggled. He wanted to believe the best of his sister. He wanted peace. We argued in low voices late at night, the house echoing around us. She wouldn't hurt you, he said. She already has, I replied. The final straw came when Lily called me, her voice shaking. Jenna had reached out to her, asked questions about my assets, my routines. The plate at the party stopped being a coincidence in my mind and became a warning. I acted. I filed paperwork. I revoked access. I sent a formal notice. Jenna showed up at my door, pounding, shouting that I was ungrateful, that I owed her. I stood on the other side of the door and didn't answer. My hands trembled, but my resolve didn't. The nightmare wasn't loud. It wasn't a single explosion. It was a series of small realizations, each one tightening the circle around what mattered. I chose myself. I chose boundaries. I chose to believe my own instincts. The house felt different after that, quieter, safer. The windows still caught the light. The floors didn't creak. I slept through the night. Freedom didn't arrive with fireworks. It came like a deep breath after holding it too long. The weeks after Jenna showed up at my door passed in a strange, stretched way, like time had learned to limp. I kept expecting the other shoe to drop, some retaliation, some dramatic family implosion, but instead there was quiet. The kind that makes you listen too hard. I went about my days with a new alertness. I changed routes to work. I checked locks twice. I kept my phone on silent at night, but face up on the bedside table, the glow of it a small comfort. Mark and I moved around each other carefully, like people navigating a room full of fragile glass. He loved his sister. I loved my life. Those truths rubbed against each other until sparks flew. One evening, about 10 days after the cafe, Mark came home late. I was sitting at the kitchen island with my laptop open, a spreadsheet on the screen, numbers neatly aligned. Old habits, control in columns. She called me, he said, dropping his keys into the bowl by the door. I didn't look up. What did she say? That you're overreacting, that you've always been cold. He winced as if the word had cut him too. I closed the laptop. Did you tell her to stop contacting us? He hesitated. That hesitation felt louder than any answer. I told her you're stressed, he said, that once things calm down. They're calm now, I interrupted. My voice surprised even me. It wasn't loud, it was flat. They're calm because I acted. Ran a hand through his hair and sank into the chair across from me. I just don't want to lose my sister. The sentence landed between us, heavy and fragile. I don't want to lose myself, I said. We sat there, the hum of the refrigerator filling the space where agreement should have been. In that moment, I understood something with painful clarity. Boundaries don't just keep bad things out. They force the people closest to you to choose where they stand. The lawyer's office smelled like coffee and toner. I signed my name so many times my hand cramped. Each signature felt like a small reclaiming. This is mine, this is mine, this is mine. I authorized a formal cease and desist. I tightened permissions. I set up monitoring alerts. The systems I'd once built to keep my siblings safe now turned inward, protecting me. When the official letter reached Jenna, the quiet broke. She didn't come to the house again. Instead, she went public, in that modern way that skirts outright accusation while inviting judgment. Vague posts about betrayal, about women who forget where they came from. Friends I barely remembered from high school messaged me with cautious questions. I didn't answer. Silence, I'd learned, is a boundary too. Lily came over one Saturday afternoon with a box of pastries and her nervous smile. I told her to stop asking me things, she said before I could even offer coffee. I hugged her, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. Thank you. I'm proud of you, she added, pulling back. I don't think I could have done this at your age, I laughed softly. I don't think I could have done it either. We sat at the table and ate sugar-dusted croissants, crumbs everywhere, talking about safe things, her classes, Evan's new job, the neighbor's ridiculous lawn gnome. Normality stitched itself back together in small moments like that. Mark took longer. He oscillated between anger and grief, between defending me and mourning the version of his sister he wanted to believe in. Counseling helped. Not because it fixed everything, but because it gave us a language that wasn't just accusation and defense. One night, months later, we lay in bed with the lights off, the house wrapped around us. I'm sorry I didn't believe you right away, he said quietly. I stared at the ceiling. Thank you for saying that. I think I thought if I could just explain it away, it wouldn't be real. I know, I said. I've been doing that my whole life. The words surprised me as they left my mouth. They settled into place like truth finally allowed to breathe. The medical appointment I'd been avoiding came next. I told the doctor about the party, the plate, the symptoms, tests followed, nothing definitive. No proof I could hold up and say this happened. But the doctor didn't dismiss me. She listened. She said stress can do strange things, and so can substances in small doses. She advised caution, awareness. Validation doesn't always come with certainty. Sometimes it comes with being believed. Housewarming faded into memory, its sharp edges blunted by time. But the lesson remained, etched deep. Trust is not an obligation, it's a choice. I started sleeping better. The nightmares thinned out, then stopped. I found myself humming while I cooked, leaving windows open just because I could. I planted herbs in the backyard, my hands in the dirt, growing something that answered only to care and patience. Jenna tried one last time through Mark to clear the air. I declined, calmly, without explanation. My piece no longer needed witnesses. Months passed. The legal processes concluded quietly. No dramatic courtroom scenes, no shouted confessions, just paperwork filed, access denied, lines drawn. The world didn't end. Family gatherings adjusted. Some people chose sides, others drifted away. I let them. One afternoon, a year after the housewarming, I hosted another dinner. Smaller. Just Lily, Evan, a couple of close friends. We laughed, cooked together, made a mess. When I set my plate down, I smiled at the absurdity of the moment, how something so ordinary had once been the hinge on which everything turned. I ate without fear. After dessert, Evan raised his glass. To Claire, he said, for teaching us that love doesn't mean letting people hurt you. I blinked fast, emotion tightening my throat. To all of us, I replied, for choosing better. When everyone left and the house settled into its familiar quiet, I walked from room to room, turning off lights. The walls held memories now, not just of sacrifice and vigilance, but of joy, of boundaries honored. I stood by the front window, watching the porch light glow against the dark. I thought about the younger version of myself, the girl who'd stepped into adulthood too fast, who'd believed endurance was the same as virtue. I wished I could tell her what I know now. You don't have to earn safety. You don't have to bleed to prove your worth. Choosing yourself isn't abandonment, it's survival. Freedom didn't arrive all at once. It came in choices, in saying no without apology. In trusting the quiet voice that says, this matters, I chose myself, and in doing so, I finally found the peace I'd been working toward all along. That's the truth of it. No villains vanquished in a blaze of glory. Just a woman who learned, a little late but not too late, that her life was her own and always had been.